a forward and a forward rate agreement. And a FRA. And I suppose we could call a forward also. This whole lecture, where I'm talking about forward rates and the expectations hypothesis and all of that, okay? The point of this lecture is to begin to build some intuition that we're going to use later on about derivatives. So the forward interest parity, I'm calling it forward interest parity, is, I write it, 1 plus R0n times 1 plus FNT equals 1 plus R0t, right? Yes. Okay. And the point of this is to say this is an interest rate. This is an interest rate that you can observe today, okay, between time 0 and time n. This is an interest rate that you can observe today between time 0 and time t, okay? And the point of, the deep point behind all of this is that if you can borrow and lend at this rate and borrow and lend at this rate, now of course there's going to be a bid-ask spread in there, but this came before we did market making. So let's just abstract from bid-ask spreads. So let's just think that you can borrow or lend at this rate, and you can borrow or lend at this rate. The point is that you can construct, okay, with these fundamental assets, a forward rate. You can construct the ability to borrow at time n and pay back at time t, okay? And the way you would do that is, if you're a bank, okay, you want to, if you had borrowing at 1 plus R0, borrowing, put it on the other side, 1 plus R0t. So if you're borrowing for for this amount of time, and you're lending for this amount of time, okay, essentially what you're doing is you're expanding your balance sheet on both sides today. You're neither borrowing nor lending. Nothing's happening, okay? You understand this notation? I'm saying this is a term T borrowing, okay? And this is term N lending. Yeah, sometimes I make up weird notation that confuses people. So let me just be clear what that is. And so you're at time 0, you're neither borrowing nor lending, okay? But at time n, okay, suddenly you get money, okay? That's what this thing matures, okay? And at time t, you have to pay money, okay? Well, what is that? You get money at time n, you pay it at time t. That's like borrowing at time n and paying back at time t. So you're creating a synthetic future loan, basically, by doing these long and short positions, okay? And that is essentially borrowing at this rate, okay? This is the rate, the forward rate is the rate you can lock in today using these existing instruments, okay? And that's what forward interest parity says. Forward interest parity says that if you are just trading with people in the forward market, okay, this is the forward rate. The forward rate has to be this. It cannot be anything other than this because you could roll your own forward rate, okay, in these markets. Okay, that's the basic idea. Then, I think it was you that asked this question. Okay, so now you asked these specific questions about all these other things. All these other things are in that lecture as examples, historical examples that are in Stigum, about how the banking system created different. It doesn't want to use these synthetic structures, okay, because it takes up balance sheet space. You know, if your balance sheet is expanding on both sides and you're not lending or borrowing, you're not making any money, and you have fixed capital and you have fixed reserves, okay, and it looks like you're taking risk. And liquidity risk and solvency risk and all of this, and the regulators aren't going to like that. Your board of governors aren't going to like that. No one's going to like that. Okay, so the attempt is to create instruments that have this effect, that are just as if you were borrowing and lending, but there's various levels of netting out. Okay, that are happening, and a forward agreement nets everything out, but you agree to do this thing. A forward agreement says, in 3 months, okay, I will lend you so much money and at such and such a rate. Okay, a FRA is just a side bet on what forward rate agreement is a side bet on what the interest rate will be three months from now. Okay, so it's a sort of derivative contract, and a forward was what? Forward is, I think this was, no, a forward is an agreement, to, I've forgotten what a forward is.
It's when the net principal payments are on the balance sheet, they're not zeroed out by the...
Okay. The point is, all three of these are different versions of this, where you're netting out principal payments, or you're not, or you're netting out the interest payments, or you're not. But the underlying conceptual basis of it is all this. All of them are doing the same thing in different ways. You can see all this very clearly. The reason I go to this effort, okay, is that you can see all this very clearly when you're dealing with fixed income instruments and the money market and all of this. When you start to move into foreign exchange, when you start to move into credit default swaps, we lose our intuition. Okay, but it's the same intuition as this. So if we really consolidate that, we're going to be happier after the midterm. Is the idea here.